There are so many toxic people out there, but have you ever sat down and asked yourself, what if I'm toxic towards myself? So, especially as a kid, I had like a constant problem with toxic people to the point that I would feel depressed most of the time, and it was kind of getting overwhelming until I finally decided at some point I was just like, what if I'm the toxic one? I just asked myself, what if it's my fault? Are those people really toxic, or am I creating that toxicity? So, for most of the time, the answer was yes, those people were toxic, but at the end of the day, I was choosing whether or not I was hanging out with them. I still chose to hang out with them. So, whenever you think you've diagnosed a toxic person, ask yourself, is it their fault? Like, genuinely, don't look at it from your perspective. Think of it through a more neutral perspective. Be like, is it genuinely their fault? Ask yourself that. And don't be afraid if it turns out to be your fault at the end of the day, because it's okay. Because the more honest you are within yourself, the more you can realize maybe you are the toxic person and maybe it's time to change that. And that's okay. It's really not that deep. Just if you realize that maybe you're the toxic one, just change that. Take steps that you can take to constantly become a better version of yourself. But that's a whole other video. Anyway, so if you diagnose a toxic person, you have to ask yourself, what is causing their toxicity? Is it envy, jealousy? Is it maybe they don't, for some reason, want you to fail? Like, there is a lot of reasons that people are mean to you. Some people just do it for no reason. There are so many people out there that are just kind of, because of their childhood, they're attracted to other people that are like innocent and they want to make them a victim. But once you be friends with those people, because you might have a traumatic childhood as well, and you might be like, oh yeah, I want to be friends with this person, and subconsciously, you're literally creating problems for yourself and for your future self. So if you think you've diagnosed a toxic person, first ask yourself, why are they toxic? Is it 100% their fault, or is it partially my fault? Or maybe in fact it is all your fault. And then you're sitting there and you thought that person was talking towards you, when in fact it was just their defense mechanism towards you because they thought you're being toxic towards them. This has happened to so many of my relationships where I'm like, it's this person's fault. But then at the end of the day, even though they were toxic, I wasn't 100% innocent either. Most of the time in these relationships that break up, it's never 100% anyone's fault. You can always take a side because whoever's friend those people are, and for example, if I like broke up with a friend and then they go to their parents and they're like, oh yeah, this person said this, that, whatever, and then from their perspective, like I seem like the evil person, but then if I do the same with my friends or with my parents, then they're going to seem like the evil person. So it's all really about perspective, but you do have to recognize it's okay to be mad at people and genuinely just be annoyed at someone once in a while, or them to be annoyed at you. That's okay. That's part of relationships. But what you have to understand is it's not okay once that's going to start getting repetitive. Like once every month or once every week, something like that happens. That is toxicity. Whenever someone genuinely, they might be one of those people that are craving that, like even subconsciously, they might genuinely be craving that toxic relationship. So you have to recognize these people, and you have to recognize it's not always 100% their fault. There's so many factors to blame. The moment you meet them, what they're going through in their life, what they went through in their life, yourself, the way they respond to your personality, maybe they're jealous of you, whatever. There are so many reasons why someone might be mean or toxic towards you. And whatever those reasons are, it doesn't matter what. Even if you did something bad, it's okay. But realize if that relationship is making you feel bad for whatever reason, just leave that relationship. During my whole childhood, I had so many toxic relationships, and the second I realized it wasn't 100% other people's fault, like sure, most of the time I was the victim, but at the end of the day, I kind of made myself the victim. I made one friendship or whatever that was like, yeah, I created myself into a victim as a sensitive person from a young age, and then suddenly all of my relationships were like that. And genuinely, it was actually my fault. I was creating this toxicity and it was my fault. I did not want to admit it at the time, and I think that might be a subconscious reason why I was constantly mad at myself, you know? I was constantly like, oh yeah, this, that, this, they did this, but then I didn't realize it's not just their fault, it's my fault as well. So now that you realize some of it might be your fault, realize it's okay, you can fix your mistakes, you can improve in this relationship or the next one. But either way, it doesn't matter what caused the toxicity. If you just don't feel it with that other person, just let go of that other person. Maybe they weren't meant for you. Maybe they taught you something and now you just don't see a point in being friends with them. That's okay, because people separate all the time. It is totally normal. But you have to realize when it's toxicity from that other person or when it's toxicity from you. If it's toxicity from you, obviously don't bow on your knees to that person, but realize it is your fault and you have to change the way you're acting, or else you're going to keep attracting victims. And if you're the victim, you have to realize if you keep being like that sensitive person, you genuinely, the universe is going to keep giving you people that are going to make you a victim. And subconsciously, I think I wanted to be a victim. And then I realized I can't do this anymore. I cannot go on my life where I'm rolling out a red carpet for everybody. I can't keep doing that. That's not going to get me anywhere. I need to grow myself, not be forced on letting other people grow and then they just leave me. That's not how friendships are supposed to work, or any sort of relationship with whatever, a human, a partner, even an animal. It doesn't matter what relationship that is. But if there's toxicity in it, and the more toxicity that starts to become repetitive, that's not good. So once you realize that whatever situation you're in is starting to get repetitive, even if it's with other people, realize cut off every single person that is causing that repetition. I don't care if it's the most important person in your life. I don't care if it's a best friend, if it's a teacher, if it's a parent. It doesn't matter. Cut off that person, because that person is going to keep repeating that behavior. And the more they repeat it, the more likely you are to become the victim. And then there's also people that make themselves into the victim. Quite literally are creating, you didn't do anything, but somehow they managed to make themselves into a victim. Sometimes I genuinely think I might be one of those people, as in I used to be, because I used to constantly think I was the victim. Sure, in most cases I was, but it was still my fault for perceiving it that way. At some point, it just got unbearable, and I cut off so many people from my life just for the sake of my mental peace. Like, literally, that was the only reason. I couldn't handle it anymore. So once I cut off all those people, obviously I became a lot happier, but I also realized there's toxicity within myself that I had to deal with. Once I dealt with that, then I became literally the happiest person in the world. I used to be like this. Some of you might be like, oh yeah, but this person is so important in my life. They might be toxic, but to the point I can't cut them off from my life. That's what I used to think about my primary school friends. Since I knew my class for such a long time and I knew I wasn't going to be friends with anybody else, I refused to cut off my friends that I knew weren't good for me. So once I did that, I graduated primary school. That was my way of avoiding the problem. And genuinely, I dreamt about leaving my friends. That's how desperate I was to get rid of all those like bad relationships. But then I realized I was forcing myself into that relationship. It doesn't matter if it was in the same primary school, because we were in the same class and I couldn't avoid seeing them every day. At a certain extent, it was kind of my fault. So I realized that. Obviously, the second that popped into my brain after graduation, I cut off all contact with those people. I've never felt better. But besides that, realize even though you might think you can't stop a certain relationship or a certain, I don't know, maybe it's your boss you don't like, go find another job. Whatever you have to do, cut off every single toxic person in your life. Every single one, because until you start changing, it's going to keep repeating. The universe is literally sending people your way until you learn that lesson that needs to be learned. That's why people for their whole life, I attract so many toxic people. And then I talk to some of those people and I'm like, maybe you're the problem. I know it's hard to hear, but maybe you are the problem. You need to realize your subconscious self might literally be attracting people that are bad for you. It is the way of the universe. The universe will keep giving you these toxic people until you learn that you have to avoid these people until you learn whatever you need to learn. Because every relationship that you like make, and then if that relationship brings apart, you have to learn something from it. And if you keep destroying these relationships but you haven't learned your lesson, the universe is going to keep sending the same relationships, the same or different people in kind of the same form, and you're going to keep repeating that until you learn from it. Next time you're in one of these relationships, or whether you're in one right now, realize what are the flaws on both sides, not just the other person. Realize what mistakes you've made. Even if you want to keep being friends with that person, you might realize that you're the one that's the most toxic. Apologize, like genuinely. It doesn't matter if they don't realize that you did anything wrong. If you think you did something wrong, apologize to them, and it's okay. But if somebody else did it to you, and you know they're going to keep repeating themselves, and it's going to keep getting repetitive for your whole life, then just cut them off. Don't let status and like whatever situation you're in influence the people you're friends with. Don't let your environment influence the people you're friends with. Especially if you're someone that thought differently than some people my age, that I was into kind of different things. Genuinely, I made so many friends, and then I was like, wait, these people aren't for me. Like, they're not. And then I realized, but if I stop being friends with them, then who am I going to be friends with? There was nothing there. Genuinely, these people were the type of people that spent 24/7 on social media or doing useless things. And then I was like, damn, I didn't know where else to find any good friends. And then I was like, I didn't realize that I needed to find a friend within myself first. How do you expect to attract good people that are better than you and on a higher level, in whatever form of a higher level at you, better than you at something, if you can't even accept yourself, you know? Like, you can't even accept yourself, and you're trying to find people that aren't toxic. That's not going to work out. You need to start genuinely deciding, like finding relationships that are good for you. Because if you keep falling into those relationships where after a few months you're going to stop being friends with them, gone. Analyze every single relationship you've had in your life and think about what happened that you stopped maintaining contact with that person. Was it just time that made you guys grow apart, or was it that you ended the relationship, they ended the relationship? It doesn't matter, but just learn from your mistakes and their mistakes. And then once you start actually learning from all those relationships, you're going to start receiving better ones, because there's going to be new lessons to learn with every single new friend you make. You're going to start receiving people that are genuinely going to help you with better lessons than worse ones, because when the universe and God sees, like, okay, yeah, you learned that lesson, now we can move on to the good part, but you have to get rid of those relationships first. You have to learn from them. Some people it takes, like, they learn it in their childhood like I did, but for other people it takes their whole life, and some people never learn it at all. But that's okay, because that's their life. You focus on yours. Genuinely just focus on yourself. Heal yourself first, and then go back to those toxic people and be like, I don't want to do this anymore, or I want you to change. We can both change. But either way, don't be so attached. Don't be so attached to everyone to the point you're begging them to stay your friend, because nobody is. Everyone is looking for people that they can stomp all over. So stop being that person that everyone is stomping all over. Stop being such a big people pleaser. I have a whole video on this, by the way. But like, genuinely, just what are you doing with your life? Like, stop being that one person that keeps getting walked over, and start to be the one that's helping the people that are getting walked over, and start to be the person that's standing up and walking their own path, rolling out your red carpet for yourself, not for other people. How do you expect to teach people lessons and teach people how to grow if you can't even learn them yourself? I had so much advice to give to people, but at the end of the day, I didn't take my own advice. Once I started taking my own advice, that's when I realized I was doing so many things wrong. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next one. I know that wasn't the longest video, but to be honest, I think that's all you need. You need to decide things for yourself, and you just need a clean slate. So whatever your relationship you're going through, or whatever is making you feel bad, it's okay. You will get through it. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you all on the next one. Bye.